Hey everybody, thank you for being here today and allowing me to present. Not only am I excited to share Nearpod with you, but I'm grateful for the opportunity. As most of you know, I am going through my grad school program, and one of the things we had to do was present curriculum and a training session to some of our peers and get comfortable in front of the classroom teaching. So everybody I've walked around has signed up like I asked you to from the previous. So everybody in here right now knows how to sign up using their Google account that Horry County Schools has provided for them. So that will help us to go ahead and get started. So everybody's on that screen. We are going to get started so that I can help you out. So here we are at the Nearpod website. As soon as you log in, this is where you go. And one of the things I wanted to share with you, and I'll share in a little bit, is the opportunity to become a Nearpod certified educator by completing some steps. And I'll talk to you about that at the end so that you could have the opportunity to do this if it's something that you're interested in, but it'll help you to get more familiar with Nearpod as you go and to take what you learn in here today out to your students. So one of the places that we are is on the left-hand side, we have the Nearpod end-all be-all. We have lessons. You can look at some of your reports. We're going to talk about school library and your Nearpod library, But here is where I have my library. You can tell I've been using it. And I have different lessons for my students that I've created over time. Some of them I've created on my own, and some of them I have gathered from the library and made them my own in order to present them out to my kids and make it more beneficial for my students. So where we are now, we're going to start practicing by searching for a lesson that you think that might be beneficial for your kids. What is something that you're going to be teaching soon that we can work with and make our own? And then once you're comfortable with that, I think you'll be more willing to kind of create your own lessons if that's something you're interested in. But up here at the top, you have a search by topic or standard. You can see you can search within your lessons if you have so many that you can't quite find. Or we're going to be at all because I want to look at the batch of lessons that teachers have previously made and shared so that we can take one, make a copy, and make it our own. So one of the things we want to do maybe for my class is review some of the topics that we've learned in class from the beginning of the year because we have to prepare for our end of the year testing. So decimals are something that I need to pay attention to and review with my kids. As you can see, when I type in decimals, it might be kind of hard to see from here, but it gives me decimals comparing place values, decimals, addition and subtraction. That's pulling up some of my things that I've already created. So let's say I want to subtract. So I just put decimal subtraction, and I'm all in Nearpod, and all of these right up here at the top, they are not mine. So they're things that I can pull from. And you can see that this is from the Nearpod team. This is a Khan Academy video, and you can add to it. So if you want to have a video and add your pieces, you can. You'll notice as I hover over, I have the opportunity to preview or add to my lessons, but I'm not going to add to my lessons until I preview it, but maybe I like this one. From here, it gives me a window of 28 slides to look at and to determine if it's something that I want. So here I am going to scroll with this blue button. It tells us about the teacher materials and preparation. It has an essential question, and these are pieces that the Nearpod team have made for us to help us, and it gives us an idea of what to expect within the lesson. You'll notice there are some pieces within the lesson that I'm going to dive deeper into and show you how to add or change what you want to add to the lesson. But here's a poll. So they added a poll, and this is an adding content, and I'll show you again, like I said, where we want to go later. So it says, how much do you already know about subtracting decimals? That sounds like a good idea. Maybe I can do a poll and a post poll. Here is a collaboration board. So it means exactly what it is. So students can collaborate on this board together. When you are on the slides, you will see what the students all put up there. They're collaborating and they're answering this question up here. It says, what does it mean to subtract? You can get it out of the way, and they will add what their thoughts are to this, and then everybody gets to see it. And then here's another collaboration board. There's a virtual reality situation here. I can see that there's a field trip. There is an open-ended question. And there's some slideshows, some fill in the blanks. It just looks pretty great. Drag and drop items that you can create or that are already here, obviously. So we are going to look at that. So what I want everybody to do now is try to find a lesson that you think looks good to you. So go ahead to your search bar, find something that you're going to teach or something that you want to review, and determine if it looks good to you. So go through the preview button. So just going back, we are looking at a search. If you like something, you're going to hover over it. You're going to hit preview and it will pull it up for you to preview. And that's what we're going to do right this second. All right, perfect. Everybody has a lesson that they think they want to collaborate on or they want to make some changes to add for their students in their library. In order to make a copy of it, you're going to add it to your lessons, and it's this blue button right here. You can see from here, it already pops up to edit. You can go ahead and click edit, but let's go to just to make sure we all have it. You have your place of my lessons over here in the gray, so if you've added something and you go to change it later or you want to know where it's at, it's in your My Lessons on this gray area, this gray bar over here. I have added this, and you notice when I hover over it right now, it says live participation or student paste. Over here in the corner, it has edit. You can obviously preview it again. You have the three little dots that allow you to do some different things. So you can share this with teachers once you're done. So maybe you're on a team of math teachers and you want everybody to have the opportunity to teach the lesson that you create, which is really great. You can duplicate this lesson. You can add to, which we are going to talk about later, district, school. It allows other people in your school or your district to see it as well. Or you can create a folder. And then you can export it as PDF and things like that, which I personally have not used much of, but we can talk about that later. From here, I want to edit though. That's what we're going to do right now. So it says you're about to edit a downloaded lesson. To keep your original, you need to duplicate it before editing. So you have a copy of it, but we're going to duplicate it just to show you that. Let's say you create a lesson and you want to make an additional copy of that to make different types of changes for a different class. So maybe you teach different classes of math class and you don't want the same exact lesson for every group. You know that one group needs more than the other or vice versa. You could duplicate it so that you can make those changes. And then of course you'd want to save it in a way that makes sense to you. But here we are on our dashboard and it shows every slide that we have, and you can add new. That's where we're going next. I wanted to show you the wonderful additions that you can make to a lesson. So you can search by name or category, but you know what you want. It's like, so if you want a slide and you want to add a slide with some different types of information in it, maybe you want your students to do a self-paced activity, you want to put some directions on there, that's what you're going to add, an image. You can add a slideshow, you can upload, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you can add PDFs, images, audios, if you have a podcast or something you want to add. But this is a really great place next. It's interactive slides that you can add to your content. So if I want to add a video on how to subtract decimals from a Khan Academy video, I can click on this and I can search for YouTube videos. I could upload my own video that I've created as well. Content, web content, sometimes people like to use the website's Math is Fun and things like that. You could give a URL and it will pop into that. Vocabulary video, I'm not sure, we'll have to look to see, but you have to have an account for vocabulary, but they might have some videos that are for free on here. I'm not quite sure. Look at the Nearpod 3D. One of the slides in there that when I previewed, had a 3D, a virtual field trip. That's right there. We have Nearpod 3D, so you can insert a 3D object. So let's say you're doing volume, you can add a 3D object and have kids see it, look at it, and manipulate it. And then you have this simulation for math and science simulations, and this is a pretty neat website. They have force of motion and different types of things you can add to it so that they're within this Nearpod lesson, but they get opportunities outside of the Nearpod to work with some different virtual reality type simulations. Then you can add a quiz, draw it, where kids can draw text or images. They can fill in the blank. There's memory. There's time to climb, which is a quiz competition, drag and drop, and matching pairs. And when you click on any of these, you can, again, create your own, or there are some in the library that have already been made by other people that are wonderful and easy to use. So if we want to add one of those, we'll just click on it and click add. But continuing on, I apologize, for under discussions, you have the collaboration board. You can make import a flip to collect video answers, kind of like Flipgrid, a poll or open-end questions, and you saw those in there as well. But you want to add some different opportunities for review with decimals prior to getting into what you want them to do, such as subtracting decimals. And maybe you want to compare them so that you make sure that they understand the value of each of the numbers that they're working with. So you can click on matching pairs, you can hit add, and the great thing about this is that you have an explore matching pairs library. So a lot of the activities that you have on there, there's a library that you can choose from, already made things, or you can make your own. So up here in the search bar, I can put compare decimals and see what pops up. So there is one here. So there's comparing decimals. When I click on it, it goes ahead and it opens all of them up, and you can see that I could even add a pair if I wanted to add to it. I could delete some of them if I did not like them, but when I hit save, it will add it to my library. Or I can preview it and just make sure when I play it that it makes sense to me when I go through and play. So you'll know if your kids are good. You can even add a timer if you see. So a lot of this is very user friendly. As you play around with it, you'll get a lot more comfortable with it. But I'm hitting save, and you can see that when I saved it, it automatically went to the end. If I want to move it, I can just drag and drop it wherever I want or wherever I think it makes the most sense. Maybe this is a quick review before we get started, and I want it to be my second slide. So what you're going to do is take the opportunity now to go ahead and add something to your content and play around with it. I'm going to set the timer, and I think this will be a good opportunity for us to see what you can play around with and manipulate. Everybody's done such a good job. I'm glad you got to play around with it, and I like the excitement on everybody's face. Getting excited about implementing these things with your kids and all the awesome content that can be added, and honestly, content that you didn't even create. That sometimes is really time consuming. So it's kind of helpful that Nearpod has really put together some really great pieces of learning that we can use within our lessons. Our last step here is to look at reports. So when you are finished with a lesson, whether that's live participation or if it is student paced, you will get a report for each of your lessons. And I want to show you that that's in the gray bar over here on the left hand side under reports. And if we click on it, so right now, if you've never used Nearpod, you will not really have a reports tab. But if you have in the past and just played around with it, you can go back and kind of see what you've done in the past. But you can see some of my other lessons. So I'm going to show you this math talk lesson that I did with decimals, and you can see the times that I did live participation. It's noted here that it was a live participation. If I click on my session from October, it will pull up some different pieces. One, I can download this or email it to myself. It tells me that there were 9 slides and I had 15 students on the live participation, and it even gives me the code. There's a summary here, and it kind of tells me about their participation. So this gives me an opportunity to see, on Draw It, my friend did not answer. So his participation score, you can see, has lowered. And it just kind of gives you an idea of how they're acting on there, especially when they're by themselves. Like maybe you leave this for work with a sub or a homework assignment while you're in small group, and you want your kids to participate in these lessons individually or within their group. You'll know, like, were they goofing off or were they on task? Under the next to the summary tab is an activity report, excuse me. So you can see that in my lesson here, I had a lot of Draw It because my students were counting using decimals, and we were really just getting familiar with a math talk, understanding the decimals. And so in my live participation, if I asked a question, they were just drawing it using their finger or their stylus pen, and it was going to give them practice. But this part shows me with the Draw It what each of my kids did. If I want to see all of my students, you can sort them differently from first name or first name Z to A, so A to Z or Z to A, and then your last name. And you can even look at your kids that did not submit to see who that was. But I can scroll through and see. So this student did not submit. All right, then when I go to the student reports, this gives me an individualized student report. So I can look at my student and I can see every single slide that she answered and how she answered it. I can grade it, I can get familiar with it, and I can determine from here, does this student not get it? Or are they not getting it when we hit a certain decimal point or a certain place value? And then you can group your students based on the needs that you can see with your Nearpod lesson. So that is really nice. This is also where you can see the results with your quizzes and so on. So back to our reports. Just to show you that there was a really weird situation where I had added a student-paced lesson here for plot development, and I was out, and I think the internet stopped working. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of look at it. But I think this might even be the incorrect one. And when I click on this, I wanted to show you the difference between live and a student-paced activity, because it's going to look a little bit differently too. Because when you're live participation, you can get really familiar quickly with what your students are doing. That's just kind of for you to look back from. But when you are not standing over their shoulder, or you're not flipping through the slides, you will have a situation where you got to look at what they've done. So if you take a look, this will tell you your class average for your total participation for, in this case, Draw It, because that was one of the activities here. They generally are a very simple way to add to your activity. And then I had an open-ended question, and that's participation for it. So I had some kids that did not answer, and I got to figure out who it was and why. So here we are looking at the participation. This student was absent, so they didn't do anything, but I was able to check back on the date and the time and know that. And you can see that we had some situations where your student participated at 50%. They did the Draw It, but they never answered the open-ended question after watching the videos. So that's a way for you to check and determine where your students are at. Some additional resources that you have to support you while you're using Nearpod can be found on your gray bar here to the side. You can see here that you have a tab that says teacher resources, and when you click on this, this is going to bring you to the page that has different places for you to understand what you're doing. So there are live webinars for you, and it's so easy to sign up if it's something that you would be interested with. You can see that Monday, March 20th, today, they had a lesson from 10 to 11 on using Nearpod with Google and attaching your lessons, your Nearpod lessons, to your Google Classroom lessons, which is going to be your best friend. And I showed you a little bit of that earlier, where you're adding a student-paced assignment to your Google Classroom, and because it's attached, and because we're using our Google Classroom username, or our Google Suites names, usernames and passwords, it couldn't be any easier to access. But you can see if somebody was using it with Microsoft, they could also get one. On another day, upcoming this week, plan, create, and edit a Nearpod lesson. So if you want a refresher on this and you want to dive in a little bit deeper at your own pace, that is an option for you. And then it brings up some vocabulary, which is, there are free. How you find lessons and videos. They have a lot of Khan Academy videos on here that are really great, and you know that we use Map Accelerator, and that's something your kids are going to be familiar with. Launching sessions with students, that's on student pace or live. And then your how-to, your post-session reports, which I showed you here on the right-hand side of the Nearpod dashboard. It gave you the reports tab, where you can see the results of what your students did and how much they participated. And then here, it's just, you can type a question if you can think of something that's not really coming up. You can see different resources based off of a specific question that you have. And then there's blogs and communities that will help to support you through your journey with Nearpod.